Hello and greetings from Yeri's veranda. This is my outdoor office this morning. I'm down here at Skogsvallen, the folk park, the community-owned and run music venue here in Östervåla. Which, if you've listened to The Great Humbling, then you may well have heard me tell some of the story of this place. That stage down there. On that stage, Simon and Garfunkel played in 1966. Sandy Shaw, Status Quo, Chuck Berry, Bill Haley, Miriam Makeba, ABBA. The list goes on. This has been for a place with a population of 1,800 people. It's a remarkable musical history that we knew nothing about when we moved to Östervåla. And Anna and I have got involved as part of the gang that runs the venue these days, putting on concerts, mostly with Swedish acts who come and play here in the summer. But who knows? Maybe we will manage to bring a new chapter to the international history of Skogsvallen as well. But I'm sitting here today, and this is Jerry Williams, one of the greats of Swedish rock and roll, sitting here on his veranda, keeping an eye out because there's a delivery due to arrive, which I will be helping to unload. So maybe I'll have to stop this video halfway through. But I wanted to give you a glimpse of another corner of our lives and tell you a bit about what I'm up to as spring turns to summer, even this far north. I mentioned The Great Humbling. I should say there's a new episode of that Ed and I dropped a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't heard that, I'll stick that in the show notes for today's video. If you stick around for the part of this that is for those of you who are part of the home team supporting my work in one way or another, then I'll take you into the museum behind me and show you a bit more of the Skogsvallen memorabilia. But mostly what I want to talk about today is writing and writers and this strange activity which I'm in the middle of, because normally at this moment in the year, most years lately, we would be running a spring online series with a school called Home. And instead, I'm spending those weeks focusing on getting this new book into shape. Last time I spoke to you, I had the Rubik's Cube. I sat in the shoe shop and it was this image of kind of turning the different pieces of the book around, trying to find how they fit together. I feel like now I'm at a stage which is more like domino toppling, setting up all of the dominoes so that when it's time to write a full draft of the book, it's like flicking that first domino and the pattern reveals itself. And I realized that all my adult life, I've been around writers in a way that's kind of extreme. I mean, so I arrived at university and thought I was going to study politics, philosophy, and economics. I was in the same group at the same college as Rachel Reeves, who's now the Chancellor of the Exchequer in Great Britain. And I realized within a fortnight that these were not my people. This was not my tribe. I didn't feel at home. And so I defected to English literature. And in the little group around me, I had, on one hand, Richard Mason, who sold his first novel for an extraordinary amount of money during our first year at university. And on the other side, Adam Thirlwell, who made it onto the list of the top 20 novelists under 40 in Granta before his first novel had even been published. And we were taught by Craig Raine, who had been the poetry editor at Faber and Faber, and who had been part of this group with Ian McEwan and Martin Amis. So there was this very male, very white, very kind of high-powered, ambitious idea of what being a writer was. And I was sort of caught within the field of that and also adrift within the field of it. And it only began to make sense to me later on in my 20s when I had my life changed by discovering the work of John Berger. And in his introduction to Berger's selected essays, Jeff Dyer singled out something that Craig Raine had written as embodying sort of the polar opposite of what Berger and his writing and his life stood for. And I realized, okay, no wonder I felt myself quite confused during those years at Oxford. I was literally, kind of taken under the wing of a writer who embodied the absolute opposite of what finally began to speak to me and give me a sense of what writing might be and what it might be for. And so I want to tell some stories today because I've been sort of revisiting Berger's work in relation to another writer from his generation, B.S. Johnson, Brian Johnson, and in particular through reading Jonathan Coe's book, Like a Fiery Elephant, which is about the life and work of B.S. Johnson. But my reason for revisiting this stuff is because there are some clues there for what this strange activity called writing might be good for. How it changes over time, what it means to be doing it in times like these. And there's another passage that I've found helpful for thinking about that, which comes from this book, which is, here we go, that's Wendell Berry and Gary Snyder. And this is a book of the letters between those two writers. Again, today it's all about white men from my father's or my grandfather's generation. That's not the only place that I draw on. It's not the only well that I drink from in my work. It just happens to be where I'm drawing from on this occasion. But this passage has come back to me and been really helpful to me in recent weeks as I'm working. And it's Wendell Berry writing to Gary Snyder about what is and isn't possible as writers against the background of the absence of a healthy living culture. Here's what he says. What I'm feeling more and more inclined to argue, in other words, is that there's no high culture without low culture. No use talking about getting enlightened or saving your soul if you can't keep the topsoil from washing away. No use expecting excellent art if there's no excellent farming and carpentry. This is hard and instructive to deal with because, of course, it means that I'm in the wrong lifetime to expect Port Royal to produce an excellent poet. I'm in the wrong lifetime to even get a good glimpse of what the excellence of an excellent Port Royal poet might be. And that's so hard for me to think because I came along under the specialist system in the arts, which proposed, among other things, that diseased society could be ransacked for the subject matter of great poetry, a notion full of silliness and despair. I think now that our work must settle for being, at best, a fragment of a glimpse of a better possibility. Speaking for myself, I'm pleased with that conclusion. I see a lot more hope and satisfaction in that than in the possibility of making an artistic triumph out of the ruin of the world. There's something there that resonates deeply for me with what a writer's vocation might be in times like these, when writing about the things that I spend my time writing about. It's something humbler than that high modernist calling to making great art out of the ruins. Something that has more of a sense of being in service to possibilities which, in the best case, we won't be around to see come to fruit. So if you stick around for the rest of this, step inside the tent, as I sometimes say, then I'm going to tell you a story about something that I figured out in the last few weeks about B.S. Johnson and John Berger and the relationship between their work. And then I'll take you inside and show you some of the memorabilia from all of the musical legends of that era who once played on the stage here at Skogsvallen. Skogsvallen, it's the pasture in the woods. You can see why they called it that. All right. See you in a moment.